Lucas Illa, and I use he, him pronouns. I am the ASUW Director of University Affairs. Yeah. Informally, I kind of describe it as the liaison between the students and the administration and the faculty. Now, there's a lot of overlapping kind of responsibilities between the president and the director of campus partnerships and the university affairs director. But it's safe to say that my role primarily, and is the only one that deals with the faculty senate. The president does sit on the faculty senate and has a voting position there, but I sit on all the 12 faculty councils, which is where, I have other folks appointed to some of them, of course. In the bylaws, I can only, I'm allowed to sit on 3, but then have to appoint interns or folks chosen through the open selection process for the rest of them. But there are 12, not all of them are pertinent to ASUW, and for student issues, there's like the faculty council on benefits and retirement and, university libraries, and they sometimes come into play. They're all relevant in some way, but the ones that I mainly focus on are around student issues, of course. So yeah, this role is a lot of meetings with administrative bodies, or I see it as, the selection of issues could be scholastic regulations needing to be changed for better transfer admissions, or transfer students finding barriers within scholastic regulations and changing those through the faculty Senate process and their subcommittees, or working directly with the department if it can be done that way. But there's just a lot of, back and forth between, like, going to a lot of liaisoning as the one student pretty much who's allowed in a lot of these faculty and administrative spaces. So I was the ASUW Senate Speaker last year, and I was the Senate Membership Coordinator the year before that. I'm a current junior, and so I got into ASUW and was a paid employee early on in the process, like my second week of school since then. So it was, I've been in ASUW pretty much since the start of my UW career. And the ASUW Board of Directors seemed like, this particular position, I should say, seemed like a really good position for someone who had basically spent a year, like I did, or 2 really, listening to what students want in the student senate space. So pretty much know when you're running the, or facilitating that group, kind of what the hot button student issues are. And I think that's one of the big, the largest strengths for this role is knowing what the students want, because you can't know everything and you can't represent every interest. So pulling in the folks that, having the scope of who's on campus, what groups are represented, what groups aren't, and make sure that they're pulled into meetings is really important. So knowing not only the student issues, but then what students are affected by issues the most. And I felt like Director of University Affairs was, one, interested me, and then 2, fed really well into my other role. Faculty Senate versus Student Senate are very different, but similar processes, similar resolutions, and I'd already, we're creating and trying to create a good way of, when Student Senate passes legislation, making sure it's followed up via the appropriate board of director. That board of director pulls in that student who wrote that legislation and goes on from there. So making sure that the faculty senate is not completely removed from the student senate is important to this role as well. I understand the limitations of ASUW and clock those and completely appreciate those as valid critiques. And I myself might hold some of those, but I see that ASUW can, especially the diversity commissions, like, and it's, I guess, somewhat separate from the board of directors, but the ASUW has a lot of value in, the commissions that we have of the, 72, 80 members or, entities that we have. I forget the specific number. There are terrific people doing great work for their communities, not only advocating for their communities, but also programming for their communities. And that's such a, and thank God they're paid, because so much of that work usually gets done by unpaid labor. And ASUW is a really good way of, especially in the JCC, the Joint Commissions Committee sector, of organizing in your community and getting paid to do so. I think that's one of the biggest strengths of ASUW, is that vibrant community that, yeah, programs, but then of course the separate piece, which is a hard one to balance, which is why it's so amazing that it's, you know, so effective, is the advocacy part. I think a great example of that is the Student Disability Commission, being one of the only groups on campus really demanding for radical progressive change for disabled students on campus. And pretty much all of ASUW's policy work that we've been advocating for on the administration level and the faculty level has all been scoped and done by the folks who serve in the Student Disability Commission's office. I think it is the creation, I helped create and now run the ASUW Undergraduate Transfer Student Advocacy Committee, or in the horrible acronym UTSAC. And UTSAC was born out of the Transfer Student Agenda for Change that was passed last June, which called for the creation of this committee. And it is an open public meeting every week. And we discuss the most pertinent transfer student issues, which the direct liaison to transfer students is the Director of Community Relations, but my role also sits on the committee because a lot of the problems that transfer students face are through scholastic regulations and admissions that my role directly deals with, but also cultural barriers. So what we've been able to do is foster a terrific, I believe it's 8-person committee. Again, it's open to all. So we have transfer students coming before they're even, you know, at UW. We have someone who's coming this fall but was admitted and wants to get involved, who's at a community college right now. And we're able to work with the first year programs office to craft and to help recommend additions to their transfer student orientation that will happen this summer, help work with undergraduate academic advising, to also, you know, look at a number of things. But I think that is the most rewarding experience so far, as it is, we're able to, and this is one of the biggest hurdles for ASUW, and especially for my role, is disseminate all this information out and have the people who've been presenting to me and, like, you know, getting me onboarded for this role about all the different, you know, systems at UW, get to do that in a committee. So we, you know, democratize how that information is shared, and how who gets to participate, who gets to, you know, access the space. A lot of the times, faculty councils and administrative spaces, it's only one student who's able to be there. And this is a creation of a separate space where administration comes to us and we have control over who, you know, is able to access a space, and that is everyone rather than the select few. That is really important. And yeah, I'm really excited because that committee has done terrific work and continues to do so. And it's only been operationalized for 1 quarter, and we have already done great work. Now, this is a pre-accomplishment because, as we know, bureaucracy goes a long while and it takes a sec, but it is set to, so this is a very niche, but I think it's really important. The Office of Student Conduct oversees behavioral, academic, and sexual misconduct cases and allegations. And, you know, once, for example, behavioral misconduct is reported, then there's a review coordinator who, or a conduct coordinator who investigates the case. But a really integral part to this is that once that student is kind of given either sanctions or, like, once a decision is made by that conduct coordinator, it goes to a review board if the student wants to appeal the decision. And this is true for also academic misconduct in the College of Arts and Sciences. And this review panel has graduate students, but it has no undergraduate representatives on it. And what is vital for, you know, representation in these spaces is that we are seeing, you know, cases of undergrads being, you know, sanctioned, or decisions being made out of that office, and the potential for the review board to change those decisions, not have any academic or undergraduate representation is, I think, a missing link to a lot of it. So getting undergraduates on those committees has been a fight, but it's been a good one, and I believe it will be done by the end of this year, and hopefully actually by the start of next quarter. So we'll have undergraduates on the academic academic misconduct review board, and the College of Arts and Sciences, and the behavioral misconduct review board in the Office of Student Life. So it's all to say, very complicated, but that's one of my big accomplishments that I feel like I wanted to get done. And then also, but yeah, most primarily and actually done is the undergraduate transfer student advocacy committee, UTSAC. What I've really tried to do, and will hopefully succeed in, is create a blog. Actually, this is a pre-accomplishment again, because it is going to be launched in the first week of spring quarter. Just say early spring quarter, because really, I hope it's going to be early spring quarter, or the first week, but I don't know. It's all about technical difficulties. That is able to go over exactly what I'm working on and what I am doing and why. And also, like, really helpful things like your rights in the classroom. One of the biggest things that I pushed for last year with my good friend who was my predecessor, Clara Coyote, in this role, was the abolition of medical excuse notes. So professors cannot ask students to provide those when they're absent to make up classwork. And the issue is now it's the enforcement of this policy. So having a blog in which students can access via the ASUW website that, yes, covers my role, what I'm doing in the faculty senate, how it relates to the student senate, transfer student issues, whatnot. That all does not matter as much as one of the website tabs that will have your rights in the classroom, of knowing, hey, this professor has refused to accommodate my disability requirements, and that's enforced by the ADA. What do I do? And like, where do you go from there? Do they know to talk to their advisor? Do they know that they can file in a complaint? Do they know, their resources in DRS, things like that? Medical excuse notes, if, not all professors have updated their syllabi, and so they still have it on there. And it, again, not allowed. There was a lot of concern this past, or, last quarter and this quarter, and especially last quarter, where there was this call for, like, from the administration for grace and compassion when it comes to student absences due to COVID. But there was no enforcement. There was no mandate for accommodations to be made. So my worry was, and I had like dozens and dozens of students come to me and say, my professor is refusing to allow me to make up work, even though I have COVID and I can't come in. What do I do? And I asked the faculty that, and I asked, the faculty leadership, and I asked the administration, and their responses were lackluster and whatnot. And I was truthful, and I said, well, this is when the chairs and the deans, if, hopefully the chairs, but especially the deans, need to step up and do something and talk to those faculty members, because students have very little social power and social capital, and they're risking their grades to stand up to ableist and, horrifyingly, elitist professors who, will deny them basic access to resources and to a right to an equal education. And so this blog hopefully will be able to do that. So my final piece is just about the dissemination of information is not only vital to, this role, because this is one role. The administration and the way the system is structured is that this role is one of two, if not the only role, that has access to incredibly influential spaces on campus. And it will do nothing and matter to no one if that information cannot be shared and cannot be disseminated to the next generation of students, because the administration waits us out. If they don't like what you're saying, they wait you out. So what is vital is that we foster an open information age where we don't use these roles to step to the next, like, thing on the totem pole, or I shouldn't say totem pole, but the rung on the ladder. And instead is really about staying true to your values. And I think in doing that, the best way to be, true to your values is to stay transparent with them and to stay transparent with the information you receive. So I'm not gatekeeping anything because information was gatekept for me, because it was hard to access all this information. It was a steep learning curve. But how we lessen that impact for future ASUW board of directors members is we ensure that this information is just widely known, and that anything that are in these meetings that are able to be shared should be shared. Because my worry, and this has kind of been the pattern, is like, oh well, it's the elitist block of things of like, I wasn't able to access this space, so therefore others should only be able to access these spaces if they were elected to do so. And it's like, we know that not all students vote in the ASUW elections, and we know a lot of the people who can access these spaces are not the ones actually affected by the issues that they're speaking on. And what we need to do, and I guess this is my advice to anyone who's running, is, and I guess this is for anyone who wins really, of like, you need to make sure that information is, one, shared, and two, you are bringing key stakeholders and going to key stakeholders, because you will be asked all the time, what do the students think? And I beg of you not to share your personal opinion on the matter if it's not well informed by the people most marginalized by the issue that you're talking about. Because a lot of the time you can't speak for 45,000 students, because a lot of the time I'm really demanding and really arguing for and fighting for what a small minority of students want, but the ones that are most system impacted by these issues. I'm not asking I'm not asking the student body, or even really displaying the opinion of the student body, if we pulled them all 45,000, right, and asked them, hey, what do you think of online learning? Should we keep on trying to expand it? And no, I'm not asking them. I'm asking the student parents. I'm asking the commuter students. I'm asking the students with disabilities, because those are the ones that are most impacted by the lack of online learning, the lack of remote accessible technology. So anyway, that's my long spiel about just information sharing and making sure that stakeholders are pulled in, and not just talking to them and then speaking in these spaces, but really bringing people in. That's what I've been doing with a variety of issues. But yeah.